Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, depending on the time zone. My name is Malaika Oringo, Founding Director of Footprint to Freedom and the Director for the African Survivor Coalition. I'll be moderating the first part of the seminar or webinar. But before we start, I just wanted to do some technical announcements. As Jay has already mentioned, that we're going to be recording the webinar. So please be aware, we're asking your consent in advance. And for any questions, please, we're going to use the chat. There are very active members among us who are going to be responding. And please kindly mute your microphone if you're not speaking. And for the French participants, please, we've left the instructions in the chat. Please use it. And we have Eric and Joy to ask if you have more questions. And again, I truly, truly welcome you today for the launch of the official launch of Beyond Survivor Survivor Action Hub, an online resource library designed to strengthen ethical and safeguarded survivor engagement. Without further ado, I want to invite our opening remarks that are going to be done by Aida Östensson. Yeah, I already said I'm going to murder this name. The Secretary General for ChildX. Please, you are welcome to give us the opening remarks.
Thank you so much, Malaika.
Yes. By the way, before you start, the full bio is going to be found in the chat.
Yes. Hi, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you joining us from different parts of the world. I'm Ida Östensson, as we say in Sweden, Secretary General at ChildX, and I'm truly honored to open this important event, the official launch of Beyond Survivors Safe Survivor Action Hub. Today, we gather across continents, time zones, and experiences, united by one shared purpose: to make survivor engagement not only possible, but safe, ethical, and empowering. Over the last decade, we've witnessed an incredible and long overdue shift. More and more survivors are leading change, shaping better laws, policies, and programs. Survivor voices and expertise are transforming how societies understand and respond to sexual exploitation and abuse. But with visibility often comes vulnerability. We've also seen a rise in exploitation and re-traumatization when survivors engage. Too many are still asked to relieve trauma rather than lead change. Too often, inclusion becomes symbolic instead of structural. That's why Beyond Survivors was created, to change not just the conversation, but the conditions. Beyond Survivors started in 2023 as a collaboration between ChildX and the survivor-led organizations Footprint to Freedom, Not Your Whore, and GStack. What began as a cluster of organizations has now grown into a global platform for ethical engagement, built with survivors for survivors. And today, with the launch of the Safe Survivor Action Hub, this vision takes a major step forward. The Hub is an online library, a place to find free resources, trainings, and tools, all focused on safeguarding survivor engagement. It's designed for both survivors and organizations, because it's not the survivor who should carry the burden of staying safe. It's our duty as institutions, organizations, and allies to ensure that safety and dignity are built into every level of engagement. At ChildX, everything we do is guided by 3 pillars: the child rights perspective, the survivor perspective, and the gender equality perspective. For us, a survivor perspective means recognizing survivors as experts, not because what they've experienced, but because of what they know. It's about shifting from storytelling to strategy, from individual bravery to collective change. Through our work in Sweden and globally, including our project More Than Survivors, supported by the Swedish Inheritance Fund, we develop concrete tools for trauma-informed and ethical inclusion. And it's this practical, values-driven work that has shaped the Safe Survivor Action Hub. And today's launch is both a celebration and also a call to action. Because when survivor engagement is done right, when it's safe, respectful, and sustainable, it doesn't just protect individuals, it strengthens the entire movement to end sexual exploitation and violence. So thank you to the collective power of survivors, partners, and allies who made this possible. Let's continue to build a future where safe survivor engagement isn't an exception, it's the standard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aida, for those wonderful remarks and reminding us that survivor engagement and inclusion should be really an institutional accountability and responsibility. With that in mind, I'm going to come in with a more survivor perspective. But first, I would like to thank again ChildX for being intentional in creating spaces like this, where survivors, institutions, and governments come together to learn, reflect, and grow. Where do we stand as survivors when it comes to survivor inclusion? I want to make this clear. Whenever we think about being included and invited, we don't just want to be invited to speak and share our stories. We want to be part of the collective impact. And what is very important is we want to know what we say out there within this engagement actually leads to impactful inclusion. And also the questions we asked: how is it safe if we are included? How are we going to be supported? Is this participation and engagement going to break us, build us, empower us, or exploit us? When I look back to when we began survivor engagement and inclusion, we came in as storytellers, where we were valued mainly for sharing our trauma stories. Thanks to this ethical shift from survivor leaders across the world who have pushed the boundaries that we are more than stories, and also the growing demand for survivor inclusion, ethical inclusion, for survivors to become partners, co-creators in the fight against human trafficking, has also helped. But this transition has come with also a high price. Many of us have entered spaces that weren't built for us, spaces that are celebrating our stories, but they do not prioritize our mental health and our well-being. Institutions really want to include us, but few of them have clear safeguarding and also focus on celebrating our stories instead of building internal capacities on how to engage survivors. And notwithstanding that for so many survivors, survivor engagement is kind of like a long-awaited opportunity for survivors to share their stories for being silenced for a very long time. And to be intentional, most survivors think about participation without thinking about safeguarding first. So this comes as a responsibility and accountability for institutions that are engaging survivors to make sure that whenever you engage survivors, that the first safeguarding procedures are in place. What we call for action, that institutions should make sure that the invitations are not only called for survivors to be engaged into speaking engagements, but also it should make sure that the engagement is safeguarded, but at the same time equitable. But this does not only call for the institutional duties to be safeguarding. As survivors, survivor leaders, we also have the responsibility to equip ourselves, get the tools and understand our rights and set boundaries when we're engaging with different stakeholders. And this is why exactly Safe Survivor Action Hub was created, to bridge this gap. For us and for you all, it's more than just a digital library. It's a learning space, the campus that is going to bridge both survivors and institutions. institutions. And I believe it's going to be a place where engagement meet ethics, because there are kind of going to be more standards and criteria to guide us, and where our passions to be engaged will be kind of embedded with protection, and most of all, where our lived experience can also be put beyond sharing our stories, but becoming leaders. So I look forward for us to engage, learn from the upcoming hub that is we're going to learn more from Jessica. As I bring in a survivor perspective, we wanted to be more intentional, because we want to create a collective space where we hear from organizations, survivors, and institutions. Now, we're going to bring in the intergovernmental perspective. We'll hear from Zoe Sakelliadou, a crime prevention and crime justice officer in the human trafficking and migrant smuggling section within the UNODC. You're going to have a full bio of Zoe within the chat. Zoe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Malaika. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Hi, everyone. First off, a big thank you to ChildX and Beyond Survivors for inviting me to be part of this incredible moment. Congratulations, by the way. It's an honor to be here with you among so many inspiring people who are not only experts, but are also deeply committed to making a real change. So I'm Zoe, as Malaika mentioned. I work at UNODC, and I'm part of a small and new team that focuses on survivor engagement. And while the team was only created last year, let me tell you, it has been a steep learning curve. This team exists because survivors and allies spoke up, advocated, and made it clear that their voices matter. Their courage and persistence pushed institutions like ours to listen and act. UNODC is guardian of the UN Protocol Against Trafficking in Persons. But when that protocol was negotiated, survivor engagement was not even part of the conversation. And that's changing now. More and more member states are recognizing the vital role survivors play, not just as beneficiaries of support, but as equal partners in shaping policies and responses. And our job is to help make that shift happen. And it's a big responsibility, and my hair are turning increasingly gray, but I love it. I remember one of the first things I asked Malaika was, are we doing this in a way that's truly safe? Are we unintentionally causing harm? And that question has stayed with me because ethical engagement isn't just a checklist. I have come to learn from many of you that apart from survivor leaders and advocates, you're also humans. That no matter how strong and resilient you are, it's not easy, and some days are better than others. And when an engagement is over, it is you and yourself matters more than anything else. One of our first steps was to reach out to lived experience experts, not just to consult, but to contract them as professionals. We were lucky to learn from the best. Malaika helped us shape our understanding, our vision, and refined our approach. Before we organized a global forum that we did in June, we knew we had to start with groundwork, and we co-organized 2 regional workshops with survivors from Africa and Latin America. We have built trust, reflected, learned from mistakes because we made mistakes, and supported each other. In this process, I have learned that you don't know what you don't know. And the more you learn, the more you realize how much you still don't know. An example, a case in point, is that you have taught me about power dynamics, what giving back the power means, what humility is, and what resilience is. And one phrase that has stuck with me in this journey was, we don't just have a sit at the table is ours. it wouldn't even exist if we hadn't suffered. And that hit me hard. It helped me understand what giving power back truly means. When we started planning the Voices of Resilience Global Forum, we knew it had to be a space where survivors felt they belonged, not just invited. And they made that happen. Okay, we did our part too, but that sense of belonging was their achievement. But getting there takes time, care, and intentional effort. We were lucky to work in-house with a great team of people, great colleagues. We were even lucky to have a psychologist trained in crisis management. We contracted external expertise on trauma. We had preparatory sessions, we had wellness sessions before and after the forum, because we care and because we are still learning. The forum led to the adoption of a call to action, a framework of commitments that puts survivors at the center of anti-trafficking efforts. We are now focused on implementing that call, and we need your help to advocate for it, embrace it, and make it real. We're also going back to the grassroots again, supporting initiatives on the ground, building trust with governments, and continuing to push for survivors to be seen as equal stakeholders. Coming to an end, if I could describe in 5 words what I have come to learn on survivor engagement by my great teacher, Malaika, it's about mutual trust, care, and shared responsibility. And it is a process, and it's not perfect, but we are committed. And I wanted to thank you for making us part of this journey.
Thank you very much, Zoe, for being intentional, transparent, and vulnerable about that, what the process looked like. And I'm honored to be bringing the voices of other survivors to spaces of high level, and also the openness that I've got from different institutions to allow me bring the voices of others. I might take the how do you say, the flower for now, but the experience, the voices come from all the survivors that rally behind me. And most of them, you are on this call. We celebrate you and thank you for your input. Thank you for bringing in that not only intergovernmental perspective, but also the experience that you, it took a human-centric approach for you to make the Voice of Resilience success, and also to have an inclusive space where it was culturally, socially, and we went for a milestone from all continent, Africa, Latin America, to speak to the people firsthand, to get their story heard. I thank you, and it was an honor to be part of that process. The next in line, after we've had all this, the most exciting part is where we are going to go to through the program. Not that our part wasn't exciting, but this is more exciting because we are going to hear directly from the survivor experts. It's going to be moderated by Elisa Thorne, the Director of Policy and Program at ChildX. Elise, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Malaika, and thank you so much also to Zoe and Ida for those words. I'm just going to pass on the word to those that have more insight into this than I do. And so we have 3 people to speak to us today on this topic, and especially discussing survivor engagement best practice, looking specifically on the risks that they have seen when engaging in this field. So I would like to ask if Frey would be put on the screen as well, as if that's possible. But I would Frey Awaruko. She's a lived experience expert, human rights advocate, and survivor leader with years of experience working in the anti-human trafficking field. Her bio will also be put up on the screen. But I would like to ask you, as one of our first speakers here on this topic, Frey, so what do you think are the main risks for survivors who are engaging in the fight against abuse and exploitation? And what do you think survivors need to know before engaging?
Thank you, Elise, and thank you, Beyond Survivors and ChildX for inviting me to participate and also create the Safe Survivor Action Hub as well. I believe the main risks for survivors who are engaging in the fight against abuse and exploitation are, the first one is re-traumatization and emotional burden. Most of the time, sharing your personal story can be very emotional and it can reopen old wounds as well. Usually, no one asks us for our consent. Sometimes in the middle of a workshop or in the middle of interview in the medias, they can just jump into asking you for your personal story, and that can create secondary trauma or re-traumatization. So someone like me who wants to be a voice for the voiceless, also you feel sometimes emotionally exhausting. It can be emotionally exhausting, so we need to give ourselves a break once in a while. And related to this, the second risk is power imbalance and tokenization. Survivors may be invited to share stories, but excluded from the decision making. And sometimes the risk of being used as symbolic without real influence in shaping policies or programs. The other thing is safety and retaliation. These days, even traffickers are being a part of, funding anti-trafficking movements. So they can control the dynamics. So speaking against the trafficker, abuser, or exploitative systems can make survivor a target of threat, harassment, or violence. Sometimes even in my case, being a survivor leader or leading survivor-led organization can expose you to more exploitation. So we need to be careful and be at safe space as much as possible. And the other one is stigma. A stigma can lead to discrimination because especially for survivors of Middle East, we've been called so many names, even in my country, and that will lead to, it's very hard to get job, to get educational opportunities, and we are usually seen as damaged or unworthy. So this will lead to us also, emotional stress. And what I want to say for survivors who want to engage in advocacy work, first, we need to know all the risks and we need to know how to mitigate those risks. Have a safety plan, protect your mental health, think about your own safety before advocating for others. So one of the things I love about the Safe Survivor Action Hub, it will help you create your personal safety kit. So I hope everyone will get the opportunity to take the training and create this safety kit. So one of the things about story is we need to choose which story to share before going to public, because once you tell your story, there is no going back, and we need to be careful. We need to know our audience. Sometimes our story cannot be motivating everyone. Sometimes you have to choose stories to share with the community and to share globally. So we need to be careful of which stories we have to share. And we need to share our stories where there is a policymaker or a change maker, because always we are pushed to tell our story, but we end up, not being included in projects, can be in funding. So we need to know where to share our story, and we need to learn to say, no, I'm not comfortable answering this question. we need to have a boundary to protect ourselves. The other thing is we need to know our rights and obligations. Find out your country's local laws. For example, in my country, there is no victim protection policy. So if you decide to confront your trafficker, it will be in your own risk. Because when you testify, when you go to the court, there is no protection system for the victim. So if we decide to go against our traffickers, we might be attacked, our families might be attacked. So we need to be careful, and we need to know how each of our countries handle victim protection. And lastly, we need to equip ourselves with knowledge. Look for sustainable economic opportunities. Be a survivor that no one can discriminate or stigmatize. Be qualified in the work you do. Show your family, your community that you are more than what happened to you at certain point in your life. You are beyond survivor. Show them you are a change maker. You are educator. You have to show your community and people around you that you can make changes. We survivors first have to forgive ourselves, our family, our friends, our community for what happened to us. I believe that is the first step, to let go of the anger before we get involved in any kind of advocacy work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Frey, for that valuable insight and for the overview of the risks, and also for the advice. I know for sure that is really appreciated from a lot of us here today. So thank you so much for that. And to continue that discussion, I would very much like to present Diana Barten. She's been working in the Salvation Army for over 13 years. And this year, she also took on the role of survivor leader in human trafficking, both nationally and internationally. So Diana, I would like to ask you, with your engagement in social work, what do you think are the specific risks for survivors working in that field? And what is the added value of survivors being engaged in social work?
First of all, hi everyone. Thank you for having me in this launch of the hub. Very grateful to be here, and I'm very happy to hear that steps are being made to make survivors have more of a platform to anticipate in this work. So thank you for that. Concerning your question about how it is as a social worker and having survivor experiences, for me, it played out a bit differently because I never started working as a survivor leader first. So I always had my experience, but I was never able to share that with anybody within my field of work. So for me, the risk was mostly in the fact that I was denying my own traumas and my own emotions whilst working as a social worker. I think the balance between work and private was sometimes hard to keep for me, which made me vulnerable and sometimes like not really being able to do my work correctly because I didn't share everything. Now working as a survivor leader, I have more of an opportunity to raise my voice and to share my knowledge from which source I get it from. So at first I tried to make differences, but they weren't really acknowledged because I never mentioned my experiences. And now they are taken more seriously because I also opened up publicly about it. So yeah, in short, I guess. Other risks can be that you identify too much with the people you work with. As a social work, you have lots of contacts with clients, with females, also males, who are sometimes also survivors of trafficking, and you must be able to keep your distance. Sometimes it's just too much and you get too involved as a social worker, which can make you also get into an emotional imbalance. I think those were for me at first the risks that I that I bumped into as a social worker.
Thank you so much, Diana. And I think what you're saying also that, you know, the need to be trauma informed overall in this work, as there are many that work both in social field and in the anti-trafficking field who are undisclosed, that have lived experiences but are not disclosed. I think that's also a really important point to raise. Did you want to add something about sort of like what you feel is the added value of including survivors in social work as well?
Yeah, I think we as social survivor and social workers, we understand the depth more. We see things quicker. We feel things quicker than colleagues who don't have experience or who are non-survivors. So I think we are more aware. There's like a really big value in that, I guess. And also we can easily adapt and adjust to their wants and needs and ask the right questions when it comes to guiding somebody on what part in their life at that point. So yeah, I do think from our own experiences, that's our source, our own experiences. It will just lead easier and quicker in reaching your clients.
Thank you so much, Diana, and thank you so much for joining this event today. I want to build on that as well and invite Saga Brodersen. Saga is a survivor advocate with years of experience. She has been the chair of the Swedish survivor-led network called Not Your Whore, who was one of the co-founders of Beyond Survivors. So we have worked together for years on building this platform as well. But Saga, I would like to ask you, so who in your opinion has been taking the responsibility for safeguarding survivor engagement, and what structure for safeguarding would you like to see in the future?
Thank you, Liz. Well, it's a tough question because in my experience, the people who have been like most consistently taking responsibility for safeguarding is the survivor ourselves. Like it's us that have been in charge of that, and unfortunately, we've had to learn the hard way, and many of us have had, like along the way, we've had our stories taken for granted, exploited, both like intentionally but also unintentionally many times, because there wasn't a clear understanding of what safe and ethical engagement should look like. And so survivors, we began developing our own frameworks and practices, and not just to protect ourselves, but we saw that eventually we were all kind of burnt out and felt, to be honest, quite horrible about everything. So we wanted to make sure that no other survivors would feel the way we felt. But like, just to make this clear, in my opinion, us survivors, we are actually the worst at safeguarding, because we often push ourselves to like across our boundaries, because we I can only speak from my experience and my friends, but our boundaries we never learned how to protect our boundaries, and we were so used to having that done to ourselves by others. So even though, I mean, us survivors, like all the survivors here sitting here, you've done amazing things and incredible examples of leadership, but we've had to learn the hard way, and it should not be that way. So that's what I'm saying. And what I'd like to see is like a future where there's a shift where safeguarding is understood as a shared responsibility, like anyone inviting survivors, and like just to make it clear, survivors should always be on the forefront, like in the room where our rights are being discussed, but the responsibility of safeguarding shouldn't be like only on us survivors. It should be, you know, it's like a surgeon holding the surgeon knife to a patient and asking the patient, like, where should I put the knife? Like, it doesn't work like that. So invite us, but not put the heaviest responsibilities on us. And that's a huge difference. So I think like this action, this hub is going to make a huge difference, because for me, the ultimate goal is to have survivors that feel safe and protected and can step into these spaces without having to self-protect like every step of the way. We shouldn't carry that burden alone. So safeguarding needs to be shared, it needs to be normalized and expected. And I think we are many out there that wants to do the right thing but doesn't know how. So I think by giving this safeguarding to NGOs, to policymakers, to organizations, everyone working with survivors is gonna be, it's gonna make all the change that we need right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Saga. And I really like the picture you painted regarding the surgeon handing the knife. I think that says a lot. And I think what you say about having this shared responsibility, and also just that we start talking more about the risks and how to safeguard. What we've seen in ChildX is that a lot of organizations are very concerned about it, but it's very much worked on in silos because it's difficult to talk about. So I think this is a really good sort of step in that direction, to be able to, for all of us to join forces and to work on this together. So thank you so much to Saga, and also to Frey and to Diana. Thank you so much. And again, continuing on that note, I want to give the floor to Jessica Airy, who is a consultant that has been working for ChildX as an expert on survivor safeguarding, to present the Safeguarding Hub and what we've been working on. So, Jessica.
Hello, thank you, Elise. I can't see my screen now, so can someone confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes.
Great, thanks, Saga, and thank you for your comments. Thank you for everyone's comments. Yes, for all the insights shared so far, I'm still processing the surgeon analogy. I think it was really poignant. But without further ado, I'm really excited to finally introduce the Safe Survivor Action Hub that we've all been anticipating for a little while now. So we'll post the link in the chat so you can check it out for yourself after the event. But for now, I just want to give you a teaser so you can take a quick look to see what's there and what the plan is for the future development of this resource. So, as a few people have mentioned, this is an ethical engagement library of free resources for survivors and for partner organizations that want to engage with survivors, focused primarily on safeguarding and well-being. Each of the resources has been developed by survivors and experts and edited by survivors from all over the world. We've adapted the materials to serve a global and local functionality as much as possible so that they're accessible, useful, and adaptable. The library is completely free, and you can simply click to access the resources anonymously by downloading them. In case of the templates, like the Survivor Safety Kit, you can edit it for yourself and make a copy for you to keep. And then there's the flagship training programs, the Safe Survivor Action and Safe Survivor Advocacy and Communication programs that we're launching today as well. Oops, I need to go to the next. So this series of interactive trainings are intended to be safeguarding introduction for everyone, although we think they'll be valuable for people, whether or not you're completely new or you have some experience, because we're trying to raise the bar with safeguarding, as Saga said. So this is, in essence, the compilation of what we wish we would have known before we started. This is a common, sadly phrase that we hear all the time. I wish someone would have just warned me about this. I could have made a different decision. Well, that's the effort with this hub, is we want to make sure that survivors have the ability to make an educated decision for themselves, with the shared responsibility of organizations as well, informing them so that we're all aware about the options, the risks that are facing many survivors in action, the supports available to them and other resources, and survivors' rights as well, which change in terms of accessibility depending on where we are in the world. There's not one way to do this, and everyone is welcome and belong here. So we have tried to make it as inclusive as possible. And then just to reiterate, just because these trainings are focused on survivors, it's still a shared responsibility. So the Safe Survivor Action training is kind of the base training for everyone. And it is covering introduction to the broader survivor movement, so collective work happening all over the world, diverse ways to engage. What we've noticed is that there's kind of a visibility bias, because we only really see the survivors that are very public. And we forget that the vast majority of survivors are not public, they're undisclosed or maybe partially disclosed. So it puts a lot of peer pressure and expectations that maybe are not realistic or safe for many people. So on part of that is we want to introduce survivors to remind them that there are many ways that you can be a survivor in action. Public advocacy is just one, and it's the 1% that end up doing that, even though they're doing amazing work, they're the most visible. But like, for example, with Diana working in social work, there's so many other ways that survivors can engage behind the scenes besides being from in front of the camera. So we introduce some of these. We help survivors try to think about interactive ways to figure out what matters to them the most, what are their priorities, and then really dig into essential safeguarding knowledge. So risk awareness, guide to personal safety planning, how to approach these issues, and help identifying what is the best option for you personally. And then in the Safe Survivor Advocacy and Communication, we split these out in two, because not everybody is going to want to go into advocacy or communication. However, these are some high-risk fields for survivors that have some unique risks associated depending on their personal profiles and what they have access to, where they are in the world, lots of variables. So these two trainings are optional, and they're in addition to the base Safe Survivor Action training. For example, in the Safe Survivor Communication training, we'll cover how to safely tell your story without it being tokenized, without it taking over your identity. And then even an introduction to modern journalism and media relations, because as things have changed with AI and digitalization, there has been a lot that has been introduced in the past few years that can put survivors at unique risks. So we want to make sure that we're informed about that. And then we also cover other aspects like broadcast, public speaking, digital communications, online safety. And in the advocacy training, we also cover legal systems throughout the world and collective international work that's being done in different regions. And then finally, this one's coming soon because it's still in the creation and review process. But this will be the Safe Survivor Engagement training will be for... Oh, maybe you can thank you. The Safe Survivor Engagement training will be specifically for partner organizations. So these first trainings are primarily for survivors or those with personal connection to survivors. And the Safe Survivor Engagement will be much of the same information about risks that survivors face and other aspects of ways to safeguard, but specifically for partner organizations, media, and institutions that want to work with survivors to do so safely. And thanks, Malaika, for letting me use you for this example. But we think one of the benefits of going to the training is that there's an incentive. Some of this stuff, as Saga mentioned, survivors can be the worst when it comes to prioritizing safeguarding. So this way it gives you like a goal and a destination to try to complete a training and have a formal certificate so that you can feel like, okay, yeah, I did it and I'm committed to this and I'm taking it seriously. And with organizations, we hope that that comes with some voluntary sense of serious commitment and accountability to safeguarding standards and to ensuring that when programming is created, that it's made with safeguarding as a priority. So a few of the survivors and others have mentioned some of the risks that are facing survivors these days, such as retaliation and DARVO, which is the reversal of the victim offender in the narrative surrounding survivors when they come forward. Re-exploitation is a really serious issue, and then digital dangers, as well as third-party threats, which can be coming from well-intentioned partner organizations that don't have safeguarding and therefore put survivors at a high risk because of that lacking, that gap in safety. So this is the real reason for why we really need to urgently take care of this and address this gap. There is, with this increase and rise in collective power and voice that survivors have achieved with their blood, sweat, and tears, literally in many cases, over the past few years, has attracted a lot of counterattacks and a great increase in harm that has been coming towards survivors. Even with good intentions, there have been serious failures across the board in every continent, in every country. So that's why this is really urgent and serious, and it's not something that we can allow to continue as is. So I'm going to give you now just a quick demo, just so you can visually see some of what the training looks like. First of all, I want to say that this was written not by ChatGPT. It was written by experts and real humans. So hopefully you get a feel for it when you're going through it, that it's real survivors and experts that genuinely care about these issues. There's a lot of video content from survivors and experts, which is quite interactive, not just text. And then there you can flip and click and checklist and download some of the features throughout the training. We try to make it as visually engaging as possible as well, with photos and graphics. And then if this is the format so that you're able to graduate with the certificate, to have the formal certificate. However, in the vein of trying to keep things as accessible as possible, all of the training materials are also available to be downloaded and even printed as PDFs, or you can download them as slides, so you can adjust them. And then in the future, we're working on translating these to be as accessible as possible into other languages, including en français for the French speakers present, and other languages as well. And all of these guides are based off of real lived experience of hundreds of survivors in actions and advocacy and communication who have suffered from a lack of safeguarding. So as others have said already, if we want to move towards true protection and safety, it's not a solution to simply exclude survivors. It's not a solution that we demand that survivors hide or pretend that they're not suffering or going through difficulty. We have to together make sure that safeguarding is real and meaningful, and so that we can do this necessary work together. And I have 10 seconds left, but I think I will just move on. You get the idea now. So just in conclusion, this is an example of an editable template. You can again download these and fill them in for yourself. The Survivor Safety Kit is meant to prepare survivors, but we also would like to invite organizations to submit their own resources that we can vet and go through the review process, so that we can really build this out to be a hub and a library. As Elise mentioned, we know that a lot of people are having siloed conversations about safeguarding, but we want to create one space where we can aggregate all of that information together, so that when a survivor is new, they find their voice, they're ready to start joining the movement, that they have one place that they can go to get an introduction, so they know that all the safety information that they need, so that they can get an idea of what they care about, and so that they can find other organizations and partners that they can work with who are also prioritizing safety and safeguarding. Because we want this space to be as meaningful as possible, primarily for survivors, of course, but also for partners as well. And then just as a teaser, this is only the beginning. You're here for the launch, and we're ready for the future as well. So we have a lot of resources in development coming soon. I mentioned the engagement training that's going to be for partners. And there's a few linked materials such as risk analyses, templates, and crisis planning resources that are part of that. survivor safety checklists, the translations, fact sheets, addressing common misinformation. And then I'm going to pass the microphone now to my colleague, Sarah Arnavara, who is leading another incredible program in addition to Beyond Survivors called More Than Survivors in Sweden. And with her program, she's also going to be working, or she already is, rather, working with a collective of survivors and experts who are developing some of the resources on the right side here. So Sarah, I will pass the mic to you, and it's staying on these slides, so I'll keep sharing my screen. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Do you hear me good? Well? Yes, okay, great. Yes, so thank you so much for having me as a part of this launch. And my name is Sarah Arnavara, which is also a hardly pronounced name for everyone outside of Finland. I'm the project manager for the Swedish project More Than Survivors, which is a 3-year project funded by the Swedish Inheritance Fund. And it started in 2024, so we've been at it for about a year. And the inspiration for this project came from the wonderful work that has been done and the lessons learned within the Beyond Survivors network that's now a platform. And it has been a great opportunity for ChildX as an organization to further develop our work with safeguarding and survivor inclusion, but in a Swedish context. And these 3 squares that you see on the PowerPoint is the main actors within the project. So we have an expert group with young adult survivors. We have a reference group with survivor-led organizations, and we also have our piloting partners, which consists of media, civil society, and authorities. And I'll try to get into at least the roles of the expert group and the piloting partners a bit more. If you could, I think you can jump to the next slide, Jessica. And I'm not going to go through all of these different forms, but you can just take a look and see it. It's just an outline of the 3 main pillars of the project: safeguarding, safe and sustainable inclusion, and systemic change, which is the goal of the project. And that we have strengthening survivors at the core of our work. But the project itself aims to strengthen survivor participation across the sector, working to prevent and combat child sexual abuse. So that's civil society, authorities, and similar. By developing practical methods, guidelines, and training materials on ethical and meaningful survivor inclusion, we aim to provide the sector with tools to integrate survivors' perspectives in ways that both improve quality and impact. And our hope is also that this will help the sector to take greater responsibility for ethical and structural survivor inclusion instead of putting the burden on survivors themselves. And as you saw on the previous slide, we have a survivor expert group that is the co-creators of all content in the project. And the goal is to promote survivor participation and inclusion as a core part of systemic change. And in the long term, our hope is that this approach will lead to more effective action against child sexual abuse, as survivors' experiences, as we have talked about today, are crucial to understanding the challenges and identifying sustainable solutions. And all parts, as I said, all parts of the project are developed together with the survivor expert group, which we recruited as one of the first tasks in the project, or steps in the project. And the methods and guidelines that we're outlining will also be tested in collaboration with public authorities, such as the Swedish Police Authority, different civil society organizations, and media outlets. And this makes the project itself an example of survivor inclusion, where multiple stakeholders have the opportunity to apply and refine the methods in real contexts. And the resources developed within the project will be possible to translate and adapt to different international contexts, and will also be made available on the Safe Survivor Action Hub, as it is finished. And just very short, I think I'm running out of time. The survivor expert group consists of 16 young adults between 18 and 25, and they come from all over Sweden. And during the recruitment, as a safeguarding measure, we work together with a psychotherapist with trauma expertise. And during the continuation of the project, she has regular counseling sessions with the group as a whole. And as a way of minimizing or mitigating all the risks that you previously have mentioned, the group has a completely anonymous role in relation to all actors external to the project. They are employed by ChildX and are compensated for their work in that sense. We meet regularly in person and parallel with working on different cases. With our piloting partners, we work with capacity building and, as I said, counseling. And we have strict guidelines for safeguarding and have regular consent check-ins, and when needed, follow-up dialogue with the participants in case their participation entails any personal risks for their well-being. And then, as a conclusion, when we are in August 2027, we've had a final report and a dissemination conference, and I hope all of you can attend that, and where we'll be sharing key insights, tools, and lessons learned with stakeholders across the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jessica, for taking us, showing us the roadmap, but also the milestones of where we've been and where we are going. We're almost coming to the end of the launch. I just have a few remarks. And also we want to encourage you, if you have questions, please just leave them in the chat. We are going to leave ChildX info email. We're going to come back to your emails. If you have questions for the panelists, please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat. We'll get back to you by email. I wanted to take this opportunity to not only thank you all for taking your time to come, but I can imagine the reason you came because you're prioritizing safe survivor engagement, and which is very crucial. We've heard from organizations, we've heard from survivor experts, we've heard from institutions. We've heard that it's not the best way to work in silos. We need to find a collaborative approach when we talk about survivor engagement. So one key takeaway was, I'm going to leverage on Zoe's statement, is that as an institution, you need to ask yourself this question. Are we doing the right thing? Are we safeguarding survivors when we engage them? How can we do it right? And in order to answer that question, you need to engage survivors to help you craft policies and draft programs, co-create programs that really speak into not only their needs, and also ask them, how do you feel safe? How can we make you feel safe? It comes back by giving the power to survivors. And also, we talk about inclusion and the tables and being at the table. Survivors being at the table is not enough if they do not have the capacity, the knowledge, the resources to impact that table. It's not being present. We need capacity. We need investment in internship, fellowship, scholarship for us to inform that table in a safe way. As we move forward, what I really perceived from this launch and hearing from everyone is that safeguarding is not the end of inclusion. It's just the foundation of meaningful survivor inclusion. So if we have that in mind, it should be the baseline. And when we think about safety, sometimes we're thinking about protocols and procedures. But safety means that survivors are compensated for their time. They have sustainable engagement. Sarah has mentioned it, that not only having an experienced group, but finding ways of making them part and parcel of the organization initiative. And for myself, fellow survivors, put on an oxygen mask first before you engage with survivors. It looks easy when we speak in theory. We work in the field. Field survivors across the world know that the urgency of survivor support does not give us, actually it's a luxury to put on the mask. But at least we should make it as a requirement for ourselves, or something that we need to consider, that we cannot protect others if we not protect ourselves. As it said, you cannot give from an empty cup. And most of us are serving from an empty cup. I want to thank our partners. I want to thank ChildX, especially for being intentional. Not that I'm bragging, that they're the first award initiative that awarded a survivor-led organization among several strong institutions. And that was kind of an initiative that different organizations can think about how to engage survivors. That it's not about how much capacity that they have, how strong they are in the arena of anti-human trafficking, but survivors need to be found, validated, and included. And in order for this to happen, we need platform, we need visibility, we need to find us, to be found. So when we think about survivor engagement and safeguarding, let it be a shared commitment. Dear survivor leaders, as we work towards becoming experts, we need to make sure that we also protect ourselves. So thank you very much from where you're calling from. You join us from, I saw from USA, some people it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and from Greece, colleagues from Salvation Army all the way from Kenya, across Europe. We thank you for taking this commitment. The next step is that you're going to find, as they mentioned, you go on ChildX website. We have Beyond Survivor, beautiful website. I've seen it. It's very beautiful, full colors and full videos. And we are available for more questions. As they say, this is a beginning. We started with the essential group that are survivors. The next in our pipeline, we think of embedding also other organizations to make it a more holistic way. I don't know if any of my colleagues, Elitha or Jessica, you have anything to say on my end. It was just a pleasure hearing from survivor experts. Thank you very much for blessing us with your vulnerability and your expertise.
Nothing to add. Thank you so much, Malaika, for hosting this event and for everything that you're doing for Beyond Survivors and the collaboration with ChildX. So thank you so much from our side as well.
Thank you, Malaika. I don't have anything else to add. And for everyone in the chat, we'll follow up with the links to all the trainings and information. But thank you for being here today. Have a great rest of your day.